So I've retired to the workshop because it's a rainy day and I've just been relaxing today. And I thought I'd take the opportunity to share something that I don't think I've shared before, but I might have done. So if I'm repeating myself, I do misspeak, of course, from time to time. I was calling Sir Graham Grady, Sir Graham O'Grady, mixing him up with John O'Looney. I mean, really, and all sorts of other problems. But it's my intention to try to keep things as fairly regular as possible and remember what's what. So I was going to speak about the time the roofing company came to visit me because I was asked about. There was a local lady whose grandfather had been scammed by some roofers, and I knew exactly who she was speaking of. And she asked, has anybody else had a similar experience? So I described my own experience, which turned out to be, as you can probably imagine, about 3 pages of foolscap, once I'd gone through the whole business. But it needed to be said all together in my mind anyway. So what it was, I had an overflowing gutter, and I really wanted somebody to go up to come up with a ladder and just clear it for me. And so when this fellow, uninvited, turned up and said that he was working on a nearby roof and had noticed a missing tile on my own roof and he offered to replace it, or a broken tile. And so I said, well, what I need is this gutter clearing. If you can do that and certainly replace the broken tile, how much would it cost me? And he told me it would be £45. And I agreed. And then, lo and behold, he wasn't alone. The van, which was initially parked around the corner, yielded another 3 young fellows, and they all proceeded to troop through round to the back of my house. I have a side access, which I had to open. And then I think once they'd seen that I don't have any CCTV or all that stuff, they backed the van round with the ladders. And the next thing that I knew, they were up on the roof. There was 3 of them on the roof, moving tiles around. And when I inquired of the fellow who was on the ground why they were moving all those tiles around, they had a bit of a conference, and he looked at me with a mournful face and said that they'd found that the roofing felt had rotted, and he produced a sample of the roofing felt, a rotting piece of roofing felt, which I do think came from my roof, had been rotted and really would need to be replaced. And not for the whole roof, though, he assured me, just for the last 3 courses of tiles. Now, I've been hoping to spend £45 to have my gutter cleared, which I thought was quite a high price anyway. But I realised that we were talking of different money here. So I asked him how much, what the price of such a job would be. And he produced a calculator from his pocket or some system and did some pretend arithmetic on it. And then when he'd finally got the figure that he was looking for, he showed it to me, and it was £3,200. And I was a bit taken aback. I'd budgeted 45 quid. 3,200 is a lot of money. It's more money than I could really afford at all, even with the best will in the world. And so I told him, I thanked him for the offer, and I said, I would need to get another quote or 2 to be sure of it, and would he leave me his card? And when he realised that I wasn't going to instantly agree, or with a bit more persuasion perhaps, to an offer, I think he gave a signal of some description, or maybe a glance was enough, and the 4 fellows just disappeared. almost as though by magic. And as the last man left the property, I held out my hand with the £45 and urged him to remember the payment. And he looked at me. I'll always remember the look that he gave me. I suppose he was incredulous, really. But he shouldn't have been. You see, if he'd been an honest man, he wouldn't have been. And he said to me, "You going to pay anyway?" And I said, "Of course, I've agreed to pay, and I understand that you've, cleared the gutter." And he took the money and left. There was a moment of truth in the glance that we exchanged. I suppose he understood that I knew what he was up to at that moment, but that I wasn't going to protest, but that he'd been seen. His dishonour had been exposed, I suppose, really. And I hope that moment, maybe, it's just conceit, this was sent by God. I had certainly no role in it. But perhaps that moment, had an effect on him. Because these men, really, they are just common thieves. That's what they are. And thieving brings no honour, and honour is more valuable than money. I'm sure they would understand that. But they live by their wits, you see, and they live among such a dullard people. Unfortunately, many men of my age are so reduced in their wits and by the medications that they take and the nonsense that they believe and the voices that are told to them, that they can be very easily manipulated and their wealth can be taken from them. And they're alone sometimes, quite often they're alone because family members are busy working elsewhere and trying to make ends meet. And these old men live a solitary life and are effectively vulnerable, because all you need to do is to sort of, I suppose, for a clever deceiver who will arrive with some charming stories and some flattery, and he's somebody to talk to, then perhaps they look forward to the visit, even though they're getting robbed. They can be so easily deceived. Could it be so? I really don't know. But I suppose these are the products of what's called dementia. But that illness can be prevented. Why don't people pay attention? God bless.